Hello everyone, this is Dave. Welcome to my short tutorial on how to include animations and 3D models that were supplied by an artist. Before I get started, I want to give credit to Joel, our artist and animator who supplied the 3D models, who supplied the animations, and who also showed me this technique that I'm about to show you. So there you go, Joel, there's your credit. Alright, so first I want to show you what Joel gave us. So I'm in the Dave animation folder, there's a statue folder in here, and this is what he gave us. So this is pretty typical. You're going to see some FBX files, and you're going to see some Max files. Now the Max files are the files that were created through 3D Studio Max. And we're not going to be using those today. Those are the raw art files. But what he exported for us were FBX files. Each one of these FBX files contains a single animation, and it also contains the 3D model itself. All of them contain the same 3D model because they're all animations built for that same 3D model. So we're only going to import the model once, and then we're going to import the rest of the animations. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with that. So here's here's the Unreal Editor. I'm going to go ahead and open the content browser. Towards the bottom of the content browser, there's an import button. So just go ahead and click import. And I'm going to go to the directory where my FBX files are stored. And there they are. I'm just going to select the first one, even though we're going to import all of these today. I only want to select one because I want to create the file with the one and then include all the others in that file. Including them all in the same item in the content browser, or excuse me, I call them files, but it's really just the item in the content browser, will make things a lot easier when we try to include these things in matinees later. So I'm just going to select that first one and click open. Never ignore your import dialog. There's a lot of important settings in here, and you need to make sure that you get them. So first thing you want to do is you want to say what package to put it in. For my QuickTime Event fighting game, I've been storing everything in QTE game assets, and I'm going to continue to use that package. I don't need a grouping. I'm only including two things today, so I'm not going to bother with that. And I don't want to go changing the name either, just because the names were agreed upon by our design team, and so we want to keep those the same so they know what they're looking at. The only thing that's really important for this particular import is to make sure that this is a skeletal mesh as opposed to a static mesh. Skeletal meshes have bones and allow for animation. And I want to make sure that import animations is turned on right here. A couple of other important things that you might want to look into is if you have a skinned model, you're going to want to include your materials and textures in your normal maps if those are supported. This is all just placeholder art, so none of this stuff is included yet, so there's no reason for me to try to include those in the import. So with those two settings definitely being correct, I'm going to go ahead and click OK. It's going to warn me that my package is not yet fully loaded, so I'm going to fully load it. And once I click import, I've got my 3D model down here, and the only other thing that I got is this anim set, which is currently called Bone Enemy Root. That's not a very useful name, so I'm going to go ahead and rename it. This is going to be my enemy animation set, so I'm just going to go to rename, and I'm going to name it Enemy Anims. For the that shouldn't be there. That's just from a previous import that I did. And I want to go ahead and rename this guy too, just because S_ALV isn't that terribly useful. So let's rename him to Enemy Statue, because this is basically our first enemy is a statue that's going to come alive when we first walk into the room and see him there. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the rest of the import process. Go ahead and open your anim set, and you'll see your 3D model there ready to go. If I actually run these animations on it right now, it will not look right, and that's because the bones are not currently tied to the bone names that were supplied to us by the artist. So go to your anim tab right here, and then down to your anim set down here. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to tie in our bones. If you look at these 5 bones right here, you've got your root, which every bone system has, every rig has, so you can just ignore that one. But these other 4 need to be listed, and they just need to be listed in that order under Use Translation Bone Names. So I'm going to add 4 items, and I'm just going to type in those bone names exactly as they are there. So the first one is bone wow, I can't type. Bone underscore enemy body. The next one is bone underscore enemy hand R. The next one is bone underscore enemy hand L. The next one is bone underscore enemy axe. And you may have noticed as I was typing those in that the bone snapped into position for this particular animation. That's a really good sign. That's a sign that we're doing everything right. Okay, so just looking at this bone structure real quick, I've got the root, which again is where every rig starts. The parent of everything else, or the ancestor of everything else here, is the body. So when the body moves, that means it's going to move the right hand and the left hand and the axe. The body has 2 children, the right hand and the left hand, and then the left hand has another child, the enemy axe, which means that by default, whenever I move the left hand, the axe is going to move along with it. So that's what's going on there if you don't quite get that stuff. So the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and test my animation, make sure that everything looks right. I'm going to turn on looping because it's going to be a convenient setting for me later, and I'm just going to push the play button down here. It takes a little while for the statue to come alive, and this is what he does when he comes alive. So that is our coming alive animation. Not the most exciting animation in the world, but it is a place to get started. So next thing I want to do is, let's go ahead and stop that. I want to import the others. Now again, I want to include them in the same animation set because including them in multiple animation sets is just going to make things very difficult to use later on. So let's go to File and Import FBX Animation. It's automatically going to open in that same directory where I got the original FBX. So I just want to select all the other FBXs. Don't select the first one again because we've already included that one. And just click Open. And yeah, it's telling me that it doesn't find a bone there for some reason. I'm not sure what's going on with that one, but okay, so now I've got the bones tied into all of these animations. You can see instead of just S underscore alive there, now I've got act, shatters, basic action, etc. So let's start playing again, and what I can do is I can just start selecting these, and you should see the different animations. So there's a little stab, there's blind rage, which is one of the more complex animations, kind of fun. He's not supposed to be holding the axe there, that's something that we need to fix. There's his charge animation. Here's his death animation. Here's him falling forward on his axe, which is ultimately what's going to be what's going to kill him. We're going to trip him as he charges by. There's a kick. Looks a little strange without feet, but you get the idea. Here's a left to right sweep. Here's a low jab. Here again, he shouldn't be holding the axe. Here's a right to left sweep, which the animator messed up on, so we'll have to get him to replace that one. That's him staggering backward. Here's him staggering forward. Here's his smash, where he smashes with the base of the hilt of his weapon. Here's a stab downward, which again the animator sort of messed up on, so we'll have to get that one fixed. Here's another one of my favorites, the swat. Here's a turnaround animation, which I probably won't use since nothing's actually animated in it. He's just spinning around. Although when this guy actually has feet, he'll be moving those feet, and so that'll have to change then. But there we go. There's our sample animations. They're all loaded in and ready to go. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and save this. This will save everything in the package, including that 3D model. You can see all those stars just disappeared. So everything's ready to go. I'm just going to grab this model, just like I would grab any other skeletal mesh or static mesh, and drag it into my level. And there he is. And just to make sure that this is working correctly, I'm going to set up a very simple, and I'm going to set up a matinee for him to be able to perform 2 of these animations back to back. So that's going to require just a little bit of Kismet. Go into Kismet, and I'm going to do this on level loaded. So just go to New Event, Level Loaded, and then I just need to add my matinee. Connect your level loaded and visible to your matinee play input. Make sure that your guy is selected here, and then we'll just double click on the matinee to open it. At this point, I'm completely done with Kismet for this example, so I'm going to close the Kismet window. Now, again, making sure that this guy is already selected, I'm going to right click over here, and since this is a skeletal mesh, I'm going to add a new skeletal mesh group. It's going to ask me for a name. I'm going to go ahead and name him enemy statue. And there we go. There's our new skeletal mesh group. We have a movement segment, which is how I can actually move him around the screen, and I've got an anim segment, which is where I can play his animations. Before I can play his animations, I have to indicate which animation set that I want to use. So going back into the content browser, make sure that your new anim set is selected, and then click on enemy statue up here at the top, and you'll see group anim sets. This is where you have to include your animation set. Click on plus to add a new item. You can add as many anim sets as you need. We only need the one that we just imported. So I'm going to click the green arrow, and you can see that it fills that in right there. And now we're ready to go. So I'm not going to do any movement in this particular example, although in my next video I definitely will. So I'm just going to go to anim here because this is my animation track, and this is where I get to play all of my animations from. Make sure that your starting time, or your time marker here, is at 0. And I'm going to hit enter to add a keyframe. Now, if you're in the animation track and you add a keyframe, it's going to ask you which sequence you want to play. I'm going to go ahead and start with S_ALV for coming alive. And you can see that's a rather long animation. Looks like it's, what, 10 seconds? That's pretty long for our animations. Then I'm going to move my time marker to the end of that. I'm going to hit enter to add another keyframe. And it's going to again ask me which sequence to start there. So I'm going to go ahead and go with Blind Rage, just because I like that one, even though that's another really long animation. So I'm again going to extend the time of my animation, this time to the end of Blind Rage. And then I'll hit enter again for a new keyframe, and let's just go ahead and do something simple like SWAT at the end, which is a much shorter animation. And I'll move my animation time to the end of that. That way the animation doesn't end prematurely. And that should be all I have to do. So I'm just going to play my level and make sure that I look at him. Remember, the alive sequence starts off with him really not doing much at all, and then he dramatically starts moving forward, so there you go. Now he moves into his Blind Rage immediately after that, and once he finishes his Blind Rage, you'll see the SWAT. And there you go. That's all there is to it. In the next video, I'll put together more parts into a longer QuickTime event system, and I'll start showing you how to deal with camera angles and stuff like that. Thank you for watching.